Think about manic depression, which is the crazy end of the crazies, both in hyper and in death wishes. But in between, and they only account for a sixth of the people in the world that have bipolar disorder. The other 5/6 of people have a genetic predisposition to bipolar disorder, but don't have the manic depression. They're not manic. They'll never be manic, but they can have depression, obsessions, ADHD in childhood or adolescence, 2 or 3 times episodes before they have a manic episode later on, or they can never have a manic episode. That there's a group of people called bipolar 2s that have depression, recurrent depression, and they don't ever present with mania, that they're just high-level producers. But they have episodes of depression unconnected.
I see.
Then there's a group of people that go up and down, that we all live somewhat on a roller coaster, okay? And that the more ups and downs your roller coaster has, the more highs and lows you have. So there's people that live like this and have a bland life, and then there's people that live like this and have some ups and downs, and then there's some people that live ups and downs all the time, from childhood off and on, called cyclothymia. They cycle between sometimes depressive or obsessive or phobic, sometimes running around and leading the school and being the class president or the student body president or something like that, and or going to the magnet high schools and coming out in a special ed kind of a program for the gifted children, like your mother did, right? And so I think that the spectrum, they also can live on the streets, that it's not connected to intelligence usually. When I grew up, that they used to say white people were bipolar and black people were schizophrenic.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's not really true anymore, hopefully.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes people treat it that way for minorities, that they give them a schizophrenic diagnosis as opposed to a bipolar. Then there's a group of people in teenage who are addicts. They get involved in drugs. Generally, the ones that come to me are self-medicating something. They're not sure what, but whatever drugs they're using, that it's helping them be calmer and be less anxious. And so there's a group of teenagers that are bipolar that never look manic. They're addicts. Alcohol, drugs, some of them sex.
Yep.
There's also a group of people that have movement disorders, tics, that about maybe 5 to 10% of people that you're squirming right now, but you don't live in tics. I think that tics speak to nervousness, and if you're feeling nervous, you can tune out for you or your mom, and I'll just continue talking. And then there's a group of people that I think your Uncle Les fits, called hypomania. These are people who never have a depression, really. They have never thought about killing themselves. That's never an option in their mind. Sometimes it's the next book they're writing. I mean, these are people that often in the universities you find lots of people like this. They're into their subject and they're happy. They're happy in their marriage, and the ones who don't often jump off roofs, right? And we know some colleagues of Uncle Les that made that choice. He's a person who didn't. He sleeps less than the average person. He has good self-esteem. He's highly productive, both in his academic career and as a lawyer. That he's people-friendly when he chooses to be. And those are the criteria that make hypomania. The disease part comes later. The drugs, the hypersexuality, the lying, the antisocial behavior, the grandiose dreams. You don't need a diagnosis for hypomania with those. You do with mania, but with hypomania you don't. And I think half of Yale walks around hypomanic, which is fine. I mean, you don't treat hypomania unless you get depression or anxiety, secondary to insomnia, sleep disorder, or trauma. That there are a group of, when I saw adults, there were a group of adults who, this was like their second or third depression, and they came to the child psychiatrist because people know that I'm interested in diagnosis, and that they were all bipolar, never manic, no history of mania, history of high performance. I mean, they're the 6-hour-a-day workers, that they didn't have to be high intelligence, but they were the worker bees of the world. The parents that were holding 2 jobs, 4 children, happy in their marriage, and strapped for money. But that's and from university people. I think that it's not connected to intelligence. That the smarter people can better articulate what's going on for them when I open a window. That the less smart say, I don't know, because they don't know. I mean, they're not attuned to themselves. So 2 kinds of kids that walk in my office, or teenagers, are the ones that know themselves and the ones that don't. So the ones that know themselves, I give them more information knowing they know themselves. And the ones that don't, I teach them what they don't know. I'm not here to do that today. Hopefully, that's what part of the recording is about, is to review it, because I'm not totally giving a talk here. But so hypomania is a big one that I believe can lead to other systems overreacting. That sickle cell anemia can be triggered by who knows what. Trauma, seasonal. It doesn't seem like it's viral, or what triggers an asthma attack? What keeps diabetes in 5% of the children and teenagers uncontrolled? I mean, as a pediatric intern at LA County, we saw lots of teenagers that, we never even asked a psychiatric question. I mean, you don't go to the emergency room if your asthma is under control. You don't go if your sugar levels look fine. You don't go if you're not coughing up sputum. I mean, you have a cold. Most parents don't sit in an emergency room. So, as a pediatric intern, I saw a lot of sick kids. Just as a side note, children with physical disorders do better with my suggestions and my information, because they know that their disorder is connected to what I'm saying. because at some level, they feel the discontrol, that they don't place it in the pancreas, or they don't place it in the lungs. That may be that's for later treatment, but they don't place it. That I believe that lithium works at the cell membrane level. Billions of cells with billions of membranes, and what it does is the matrix of of all of us is called interstitial tissues, and that the cells live in separated from each other by interstitial space. The cell is like so small that you can only see it under a ultrafine microscope. It's maybe 3 or 4 layers thick, and it has hundreds of little holes. That this stuff is all new, and it's interesting because where the chemicals attach, how they go in, how they go out, that there is a master switch, I believe, that tells the organ system to work right, because most of the world works right, in that system. Cardiac, genital, uterine, pregnancy. I mean, you take the world, and 10% don't work right, but 90% do work right. We forget in medicine sometimes that most people work right, not in every system, but as a doctor, I have some comparison, and lithium has helped my junior diabetics. It has helped my seasonal allergies. They don't happen. When lithium works, what it does is it orders the actual cell membrane, and it tells it when to release this and when to bring it back in. Thousands of chemicals and electricity, and that's off in bipolar people. It doesn't work right. That at the actual membrane of the cell, of billions of cells, I believe there's a disorder. It may be that it may also be an internal microcytotomal circle. I mean, it's bodies. They're looking at that. That's not the name. But the cells don't open and close when they're supposed to. If the image I use is that if you think about Swiss cheese, it has holes. But this has holes that open and close. If you haven't seen Laughing, but they have those windows that they would tell jokes from, and they would open and close. That there's billions of those. I believe that lithium normalizes that at the cellular level, which then allows the cells to open and close normally. You don't give a medal to someone and they're no longer crazy. Well, that's true in manic depression. The delusion, the mania goes away. I mean, it's like it becomes like a dream. I mean, they were dreaming outside in the real, and the dream goes back inside, and as dreams do, it goes to sleep. That when lithium works, it closes for mania this dream state. They dream at night and remember it as dreams. They don't live the dream. Just as I remember one guy I saw, a Korean architect at JPL, woke up one morning and decided he was with the FBI and he was there to protect President Reagan. as he came into LAX.
Wow.
No gun, no identification, but he got in his car and was driving around the airport so many times that he stopped him, and he told the airport police a story. Well, they took him to the psych hospital. Never had a history of anything. Well, had a history of mood swings that were okay. I mean, you just had mood swings, that's all. But never had a history of mania. You know, he was already an engineer. He never stopped his lithium when it worked.
Mm.
He didn't live the dream state. So we're talking about an element that, it's an element, folks, costs $20 a month. And it only works if it works.
Mm-hmm.
If you don't have the cell membrane issue, it doesn't work. Plain and simple. I don't have anybody on lithium that's ever said, I'm not sure.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure is not an answer. If you're 8 years old, you can say, I'm sure. If you have ADHD and you know it, and I give you stimulants, you say it works. If you have bipolar and I give you lithium, you say it works. If you have anxiety or depression and I give you an antidepressant, it works. If it doesn't work, it's stopped. Nobody stays on medication. And if it gives side effects, then 20% of people on lithium, especially women, it lowers their thyroid. So the women often have to go on for replacement. That if they're already low or there's a family history of thyroid disease, that they just go on full replacement. It's like it shuts down the thyroid, and that's only knows by blood tests, or a family history. You would be a perfect case to have to go on full thyroid replacement, and not this crap of we'll see, and then 6 months later we'll see, and all that time you're borderline because you have bipolar, you don't have thyroid disease. Hello. What can I say? And I'm glad to be able to push into the health system with you and get the care you need, Fazia, because this doesn't go away, as you know. And I think that for healthcare professionals not to listen to you is very unfair. And I think that is part of my job as a psychiatrist, is that I listen to what someone says. Okay, lithium works in 70% of people. The other 70% don't like it because they don't need it. That they taste salt, they taste like, it's sort of like monosodium glutamate, they gain weight or they feel shaky. That stopped, it goes away. Hello, big deal. That's always not happy for me to see. It's not happy for me to see. $20 a month and 8 glasses of water a day, you stay stable. So it is not happy for me to see when it doesn't work. Because there are a group of people who really are cyclothymic, that their railroad track is too steep. And the image of that is we all live on a railroad track. It's called the central nervous system. And in that is a train, and we ride in the train through life. I don't know where we go after, but through life we ride on the train, and the train has 2 levers on it. Go faster and stop. We sit in the train and we're the conductor. There's a group of people who their levers don't work right. they say to themselves, stop, and the brake doesn't work. They go through the same path every time. Every time. It's like they don't understand. I understand, doctor, that I'm supposed to do this, but I can't. At some point, the nervous system takes on and the person loses the consciousness to lead. And that's the concern I have in children and teenagers, is they get mindless. They don't remember the event. And then they have to use their parents' brain to remind them. And so they're not using their own brain to even be more mindful. And then they don't talk about it. And you're less in that category because you're an extrovert. The two people you live with are introverts. Your husband could be both. He chooses not to. Excuse me. Okay? He is probably like that also. But what we're seeing is introversion now, that as long as processing goes on, then the introvert's fine. The introvert's fine. You know, at some point in adolescence, they learn to speak up. And not being an introvert, that took me a long time to gain that process.
It's time to go to the airport.
So these people do better on an anticonvulsant, Depakote being one of them. That what it does is the brake and the forward are electrical. If it doesn't work, the electricity isn't working. And so adding the anticonvulsant gives the person back control of the levers. And so when they're supposed to go on track A, they don't go on track B, they go on track A. Or track C, they go on back where they go where they want to go. Their feet listen to them. Their hands listen to them. Their mouth listens to them. That it puts them somatically into their body. Okay, we need to stop.